Very good. The technical challenges having been surmounted, I will call the Monday, December 6th meeting of the Parkland Recreation Committee of the City of Wausau to order. First item is public comment or suggestions. Anybody here with public comment? Seeing none. Approving the minutes on the second page or so, there's reference to some state legislation, and it refers to one of the bills being sent to the House, and that should say sent to the Assembly. That's the only thing I found in there. Anybody else have any questions, concerns? Do a motion to approve? Motion by Neal, second by Larson. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Neglected roll call. Alder Killian was detained in helping out a friend the town, and he's on his way. He'll be a few minutes late, but he's barreling this way. Item 4, discussion and possible action regarding the donation of parkland adjacent to Westview Terrace Park. Jamie can talk about that, but I did ask, I was kind of curious this morning as to whether if we didn't accept this land, if this parcel could be sold and a home could be put on it. And I think if a home were put on it, it would detract from the park, and that would make, kind of push us a little more to accept it. But Jamie checked with Bill Hebert, and he said the lot is so small, you probably needed some kind of a zoning exception on it, and it would be like a one-bedroom house with a one-stall garage, maybe 900 square feet. So I don't think that's going to happen there. So I guess that's not a concern. Comments on the prospect? Any further thoughts? Shaking head negative? Yes, sir.
Going back to our last discussion on this, I don't see where this would be of any use to the city, of any value.
Yeah, I think it's limited, and it would, as the department head has pointed out, I'm sure that staff probably chimed in, it would be a maintenance burden. Any other thoughts?
I think that's probably why they want to give it to the city, so they don't have to maintain it.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, it's a lot to mow.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Maybe the city could just be nice and offer to plant some trees in that area and make it a more non-maintained, natural triangle of land.
That a thought like that did cross my mind, that it maybe could be allowed to go more natural. I think that would ease the burden on the landowners. Part of me is thinking that maybe, and members can tell me what they think, maybe this is a decision since it's kind of a community asset. Maybe we should send the question to the city council with no recommendation. Let them figure it out.
Well, Mr. Chair, the homeowners do, it depends if we could get it to city council like this month, that's a possibility, but they do need a direction on this because they are moving forward with changing, they're working with Bill Hebert to change the designation of their, I don't know if it's a townhouse to now a duplex or vice versa, but they're wanting to get their land surveyed. So if it has to wait another month, then they may not be interested in anymore because of that reason. Because they're on a kind of a timeline. We already pushed them back a month.
Oh,
last month.
okay. Well, if there's a motion either way, I would accept it, or we can move to send it to council and inconvenience them a little bit.
Mr. Chair, if I could add one more thing. I do believe if they wanted to, when you bring up the idea of changing it to more of a non-mowed area, I believe that there is a way that they could turn it into like a prairie planting area. I think that, I haven't checked our current city ordinance on that, but we do have prairie areas within the city that's a possibility that the homeowner could do on their own. I mean, that would be something that they could choose to do and plant and then not have to mow it.
Is that something that staff could confer with them on? Maybe?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
then would we have the neighborhood complaining about people not cutting their grass?
Probably for a while. In the first 3 years as you establish a prairie, it does usually look like weeds, but that would be up to them to, there's a way of educating, when we did it down at River Life, there's signage that you can put that this is a prairie area. So, I mean, that's an education piece that yes, there will be complaints, but that's where there'll have to be some sort of education.
Yeah, it would be a natural area, and like Alder Neal pointed out, if there were some trees in there and stuff, it would.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
you say adding trees in there to make it more natural, but still, you're still gonna have to maintain it because leaves, drop a lot of stuff. I have trees in my yard I wish I didn't have because they drop a lot of stuff. They drop a lot of leaves and you still would have to maintain it regardless if it was grass or trees. And I would just recommend that the city just pass on this.
Okay. If you let it go natural, you wouldn't have to rake or mow or anything else. You just walk away from it, but after you did some planting. But is that a motion to pass on the potential donation?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Neil. Any thoughts, Ms. Watson? This is your turf, kind of?
I think it would be cool if it could go back to sort of a natural area. I think it would complement the park nearby, so.
But it doesn't need to be city-owned to do that.
Correct.
As I said earlier, Mr. Chair, as just a way to, kind of make it easier for the, adjacent homeowner, and to kind of give a gift to the neighborhood too, is to help them create this sort of, a little natural plot of, trees and prairie vegetation and whatnot, as sort of like a little mini park for them, a little, scenic thing. So, I mean, that's just it wouldn't be our land, it would still be their land, but we could offer maybe a little help from the city forester, that kind of thing.
Sure, and I think probably somebody from Monk Botanical Gardens might come down and suggest plants for butterflies or whatever, so I think there's some potential there. Any other comments before we vote on it? All those in favor of thanks but no thanks, with the offer of assisting them, and if they would consider changing it to a natural area, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none. Vote with the majority, so it's 4-0. Very good. It's the second time in, week and a half that I've been a part of a body that said thanks but no thanks. We had on the county side, we had a person offering some property, and turns out that providing access to it and parking and everything else would be so expensive that couldn't swing it. So, very good. Mr. Killian is joining us. We are on item 5. Discussion and possible action approving of revisions to the park naming guidelines and criteria and the sponsorship policy for parks and park facilities. And Ms. Polly can lead us through that one.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Killian. This is really more of a housekeeping item. I know Ms. Jacobson is on the line. If there is any questions, I've been working with Tara in the city attorney's office on this. So you have seen this exact same thing, sponsorship and naming right policy, back in April or May when I had brought it to you. And after that is when we wanted to take this type of a policy to the city council to get approved. And it's something that Tara looked at, provided me with great suggestions on how to basically clean it up and make it easier to read. And because it wasn't a high priority, it just kind of got on my to-do list for a while. I finally got to it and realized that the changes she made were very helpful. They took a lot of the duplication out. So really the content of the policies and the criteria don't change at all, but we did do significant changes to the document. If you looked at the last one, which was a lot of wording, to this one, it was just significant changes enough that I wanted you to see it before it came to the city council and have you look at it and say, this is not what we looked at a few months ago. Really, there isn't any content changes in front of you today compared to the first one, but I wanted to bring it back, and then after it goes from here, it will go to the city council for final adoption. And it is, as we put in the agenda, it's a policy for sponsorships, and then the naming rights, it's just a criteria. So it's not a policy for naming rights, it's that criteria that we'll work on following if those situations ever arise. And we wrote it as such so that we can use it for park facilities, that our department can use it for park facilities, both within the county and in the city. It did go to the County Parks Commission last week, Tuesday, and it did get approved by them in this format. So now I'll bring it to you, and then this will go to the city council.
In looking through this, anybody see any issues? Looked like the same thing we did before, but a little more streamlined and less wordy.
Yeah, Tara put a lot of time into it.
Yeah,
I'd move to approve as changed.
very good. Motion by Neal, second by Larson. Questions, comments? All those in favor say
Aye.
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 aye. Aye, too. 5-0, thank you. Very good. There's our action items. We move into educational items, and Ms. Powley can lead us through that one, too.
Yes, I can take that on. Mr. Sims is on the line if you have any questions for him directly. He's on WebEx. But wanted to let you know that we have started our Sylvan Hill work to get snowmaking done up there, and Mother Nature helped us a little bit this weekend by adding some snow. We started that last week with 2 snow guns versus 1, so that's good. I have not been out there to see our progress yet, so Andy may have an update on that. But it had been really warm, so that didn't really help us in snowmaking. Now it's cold, so. Andy, do you have any update on where we're at with our current snowmaking?
Yes, we're actually just starting to make some significant headway due to the recent temperature shift today. I know we were kind of down in that 1-2 nozzle range, which is, we'll call it 25 to maybe 40% as far as how much water we can output. But I think we're up into that 4 and possibly even 5 nozzle range as of right now with the recent drop in temperature. So we're going to make quite a bit of snow pretty quickly, hopefully.
Thank you. And then we have the construction and of the boardwalks that go along with the bike trail that Seawalk updated is underway over the winter. We'll get those installed then. A couple of years ago, we made a list of the vistas that we are maintaining, and so they go through those as time allows, and those have been cleared. We do have a new city forester on staff. We will bring him to a future meeting, and his name is John, and we're excited to have him on staff. We'll have him here in front of you to meet everybody and kind of talk about the urban forestry and what his plans might be, and he's got Mr. Sims as his direct supervisor who can help him out tremendously, so that's going to be a good transition. General park maintenance, we are preparing for snow. We were out doing snow removal this morning. We are down a a mechanic, so we are down to 1, and we're working him pretty hard to help us get everything prepared, but we're working on filling that position. And then the routine operations. So not a lot on our list, but now with snow and making snow and the ice arenas up in the county facilities and starting the ice rinks outdoors, we're going to be, this is more of in a county park, but as a function of our department, we are going to be helping the CVB make all the ice for their pond hockey tournament in Marathon Park. So that's a pretty big undertaking to make one big sheet of ice, and then they're going to partition it off into their own, but that will be in January, that ice hockey tournament, or pond hockey tournament. So that's kind of where we're at with park updates.
I had a question. I don't know if it's for Andy or you, but on the Sylvan Hill, did I see a photo of a snow nozzle thingamabob mounted on a vehicle so you could move it around?
It's not mounted on a vehicle, but it does have wheels, so yes, you can attach it. Andy, I guess you can explain it more, but you can attach it and move it to,
How does that work, Andy?
Yeah, the best way I can describe that is it's a towable unit. So essentially, because of the steep grade of the hill, we typically hook it to a dozer and move it around that way. So, we'll make a move during a shift and then, produce a bunch of snow. And then as we, incrementally work our way down the hill, just hook that back up and move it. Now that we have the two guns, we're kind of bouncing between the two. So there's electric run to each gun and then a separate set of water hose that runs to each gun.
Okay, and then on park maintenance, you mentioned you're down to one guy. How's your illness situation there with staff?
our department was hit fairly hard by COVID a few weeks ago, where we were, at one point, we had a couple of days where we had 11 people out, not all positive, some were waiting for their tests. When we came back in, we were, for about a week and a half, down 8 people. We are still down 4 people, and those 3 of those 4 may be longer term. So our department's
Oh.
working hard to, wish them well. They're all improving, so that's really good. So yeah, keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well, and our rest of our staff has really stepped up and filled in those spots where we were needing help, and everybody's kind of keeping their distance but working good together.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else have any questions on that first category? Very good. Dog park.
All right, so I reached out per our discussion from the last meeting. I did send an email out to our existing dog park committee, and I did hear back from all of them as to whether they're interested in continuing for a future meeting. All of them but one said they had the time and availability to work on that. So I was going to put, I haven't done this yet, but I'll put maybe an advertisement out or a call for it on our Facebook page to see if anybody else is interested, to get just a few people more, and then we can have an initial meeting and kind of start the conversation around what we talked about at the last meeting.
And the mayor may have, some names on file or something that, can you
Yes.
help?
Yeah, I can help. We have them on the citizens participation form, so I can check to see who's already requested. Otherwise, you can also link to that and people can apply. Yay.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. Solved that. Oh.
Yep.
Riverside Park testing update, letter in the file, do you want to talk about that? I was a little
Yep.
confused by the heading that said Riverside Park, Riverside Rail Corridor. And I didn't know quite what that was, but I was able to clarify today that the whole, it includes the area where we just did the intensive testing. And it's not just the railroad tracks.
Yes. So what this letter is in your packet is the letter that was required from the DNR to submit within that 60-day period, 30 days, can't remember, 60-day period that they had from REI to respond to their letter. REI had paid the additional fee in order to get a written response from the DNR. This is that written response, and so now that goes directly to, so this is for our information, it goes directly to REI, and REI from there has to come up with their final remediation plan. And Mr. Lindman said that that's anticipated to be completed in mid-December. So as soon as we get that, then it comes back to this body to discuss. And yeah, as Mr. Lindman clarified this afternoon, that this whole study had originally, even though we were talking about the park on a separate issue, it had originally started because of the railroad, and then started to encompass the park because it was that whole railroad corridor where they found that. So this letter does refer to that whole area, including the park. So that's where we're at right now. I don't have anything, I guess, specific to say about the letter, other than REI is happy to have that on a timely manner, and we'll be coming back with their plan.
So does REI bring that remediation proposal back to us, and then we say, yes, send that to the DNR, or do they send it to the DNR, and then when the DNR reacts to it, then we get it back? Do you know?
I don't know specifically. I can clarify that with Mr. Lindman. I guess from my understanding, was that they would submit it to, I believe that they'd submit it to the city for review first, and then to the DNR, but don't quote me, I gathered that just from different things I picked up through these conversations, so I can clarify that and send a clarification out to the committee.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that one? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do like kind of the idea you had indicated, or at least the possibility of the city or this committee seeing it prior to the submission to the DNR. I think that would be real positive, given this committee's history and involvement in the issue. And it sounds like it may go that way anyway, so.
Okay, maybe
Thank you.
Ms. Powley can kind of indicate that that's our preference,
Yep.
that we see it before the, hopefully someday the DNR is going to say, yes, that's a good plan, go for it.
Yep,
And we'll all say, hallelujah.
yep, I will do that.
Anything else on that? Very good. Urban Forestry Grant Award.
Yes.
Good news?
This is good news. I wanted to include this in your packet just because it's a good thing. It was an article. Mr. Sims can actually talk to it more specifically as to why we got it and how we got it. But it was nice that when you have a storm or you have an issue like this, that there's sometimes these fundings available. And so Andy, as the city forester, took full advantage of that and applied for a grant to help with the costs we had. There was a limit to what he could ask for, and then the amount of money that the state had was divvied up amongst the applicants. And so I believe we got about 50% of what we had asked for. That's correct, right, Andy?
Yes, probably exactly 50%. So it was an emergency order by the governor with the storm in late July that enabled us to apply for this. And several communities around here applied for it and received it as well. So I think we applied for about 26,000 and got roughly 13. So, pretty good for the city. Just a little, I guess, state kickback to us. So that should help.
How's that money used then? Do you hire private contractors to help you get the job done, or is it for overtime purposes, or what?
Yep, so we actually, we could have done that. But what we did was, it was actually easier to track our costs associated with cleanup from that storm, be it removal, restorative pruning, or future planting needs. So I added all those factors in, including the personnel time, the equipment time, and the tree cost, the tree replacement cost. And that's where I came up with that 26,000 number. So, and they financially supported half of it. So it worked out pretty well.
Very good. Yes, sir. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed the other four applicants were cities, communities, whereas we were indicated as Marathon County. So is that the case where these funds are going to be spread throughout the county and diluted terribly, or what?
No, and Andy can correct me if I'm
No.
wrong. No, it's listed as Marathon County because I think that was the part of our name that we submitted as our government agency, because we're technically county employees. But I believe because our urban forestry program is only the city, so these funds would go back to just the city, and that's what funds our urban forestry program. So, Andy, am I correct on that?
That is correct. There were some criteria with this grant. There had to be 100 people per capita, and because we also had a lot of damage on the Mountain Bay Trail, so I had tried to do two grants, one for the time spent on the Mountain Bay, and then the other one for the time spent within the city of Wausau. And Wausau was the only one that qualified for the grant, so it was submitted as Marathon County because that's my employer. However, this money is going to the city.
Excuse me. Making some strange noises with this cancer thing. Any other comments, questions on that one? Very good. We are down to future agenda items. Anybody got anything they would like to add to those things? We would like to.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do.
Yes, sir.
If there'd been any further traction on the proposed bequeathing of that land next to the dog park, to the north of the dog park, any movement on that with the proposed buyer thereof, and any logistics about that or whatever.
I did hear from the potential donor. I advised them that we had a concern about the contamination on the site, and I asked if their generosity would include paying for a
Phase one.
examination of it, get a look-see at it. And the wife of the guy who was out of town for 6 months or so, she indicated that she would talk with him, but her immediate reaction was probably not in terms of paying for the phase one thing. So we can wait to see when he returns if they're interested, or we could consider seeing if we could use environmental fund monies or something like that for that might be. I'm going to put that on the next agenda. Thank you. Anything
Well,
else?
Can I ask though, if we put it
Yes.
on the next agenda, what are we, what's the action item we're looking for? If
think
we
the
don't
action
have,
item would
right now,
be-
nobody. Okay.
Would it be more of an update as to our potential steps we might take? What's the feasibility of maybe dipping into environmental funds to a phase one at least, that sort of thing? Because we don't know, early on, the land that we used for the dog park itself, we had extensive knowledge about what was down there, had a history and that kind of thing. We don't know right now what the history of this one is, as far as I know.
No.
So,
There was, though, we did talk about this at a long time ago. We talked about this particular piece of property, of whether the city was interested in buying it, because the cost isn't that much on this piece. And at that point, I have to go back and look at the notes and the action. At that point, because of the possible high potential costs of doing the environmental study and then the environmental remediation of it, well, from what I recall, it was chosen to pass on it because it could potentially be an enormous amount of money to clean it up. And that's, so I guess I'm hesitant, and maybe Ms. Jacobson can sign in. I guess I'm hesitant to discuss it unless the city's interested in buying it and we're interested in going that about, because right now, the potential donor doesn't own the property. So I would think that we shouldn't even consider it until they actually own the piece of property. And then the cost of cleaning it up still looks like it's gonna fall on the city, but I guess that's the
Yeah.
bridge to cross if we're.
My thought is that that's something that the committee can legitimately discuss, and if we had information on whether there were possibly funds available that could be requested to do it. I think when Chris Jock was here, I think he was in contact with the owner, and I think they wanted $46,000 or something. I think this potential donor has got that number considerably reduced. I'm not sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and I think it's an interesting study to go back and look at what those offering prices were over the years and how they seem to have dropped precipitously. And the second thing is it's already undergone an environmental assessment, and I think a pre-Superfund assessment of sorts. Now, that doesn't mean that there was a likelihood that it would be superfunded, but I think there were some issues. It's my understanding from some of the links I had provided to staff that that property had been acquired as some sort of consequence of a financial relationship. So the property had been acquired, and if I'm not mistaken, the property owner then tried to submit a lender exemption request to the DNR, which it rejected. So it's my understanding that the current property holder, the one who had acquired it as some sort of consequence to a financial relationship, then had to hire a consultant, and quite an in-depth study has been done. And I think in the realm of justice and good public policy, it may very well be this property owner who may have to clean it up inevitably if no one else is going to do that. So I think we should perhaps make sure that we look into this closely, and perhaps for a future agenda item, because it exists, if I'm not mistaken, on the DNR Burt's website, we could simply look at these studies that exist on that property, because it's my understanding that they're extensive. Thank you.
I think that's a good point, and maybe we could have the city's environmental engineer look into it and also ask the city's finance director if, I mean, potential is there. I'm glad you brought it up, Alder Neal.
Yeah, I think it's good information. We're tossing around the term cleanup, and, would this not be more apt to be a cover and cap kind of situation, similar to what the dog park itself underwent, because it wasn't cleaned up per se, it was covered and capped, and then restricted for what it could be used for. So this pretty much, to me, it's almost like potentially a twin to the dog park as it is.
I would imagine that the conditions are similar, but what do I know? Any other thoughts on that one? Very good. January topic, excellent. Very good, nothing else? Next meeting date, Monday, January 3. That one will be chaired by Alder Killian as the vice chair of this committee, and I'm going to be spending a few weeks in sunny Marshfield, recuperating from a stem cell transplant. Motion to adjourn would be in order. Watson. Pardon? Mr. Brown, did you have anything to say?
Not on these issues.
Very good. I want to give you a shot. Motion by Watson.
Second by me, and good luck with your procedure, too.
By Neal, thank you very much. All
Good
those
luck,
in favor
Mr.
say aye.
Chair.
Good luck, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Be praying for you.
Appreciate it. We're adjourned. All those
Aye.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.